good, everybody? Welcome back to Universal Teas. It's your girl Toya, and this is the People's Podcast. This is episode 11, and this episode is called Check Yourself, right? Check yourself at the door. And I was telling my people here on Facebook Live, and remember, if you are not my friend on Facebook, please add me so that you can become a part of the conversation. I was telling them that I'm actually really tired today, and I was trying to figure out why. But this is my first time hopping on to record after having worked in person with the kids. I'm a teacher. But we're going to leave that where it's at. So the way that this episode came about is actually, I was talking to two of my friends, and one of them actually just texted me. That's crazy. But shout out to my two friends, Connie and Camille. We were on a FaceTime call the other day, and we just started talking, you know what I'm saying, girl chat, and the topic came up of self-love, right? So originally this episode was supposed to be about self-love, but I realized, honestly, y'all, when I be looking for content to record, while we were talking, I was legit taking notes about our conversation, because me and my girls get deep. And so as I was looking at the notes I was taking of our conversation, I realized that our conversation wasn't so much about self-love, but it was more about self-awareness, right? And this made me think of a quote, and y'all know I'm like a book nerd, right? And I be all into like history and things like that. And so it reminded me of a quote from Lauryn Hill, and I've said this on another one of my podcasts. But there was an interview maybe 10 years ago Lauryn Hill did at a university, and she said in that interview, until you can conquer the enemy within yourself, you can't deal with anyone, right? That was Lauryn Hill. And I felt like that quote resonated so much with me because I've been in a very reflective space, right? And so I'm like, what do you mean until you conquer the enemy within yourself? And I had to realize that we all have enemies within ourselves. We all have struggles. We all have triggers. We all have things about ourselves that are not good, right? That are not pleasing to other people. And we have things that we need to work on. So as I'm going through this episode, I want you all to really think about what is your inner enemy, right? And this episode is called Check Yourself, because you can't go out here into the world and deal with anyone and expect anything from anybody if you can't even look into yourself. And when I say look into yourself, I mean your own biases, right? Your fears, your triggers, the negative things about you, right? And so as we were talking, me and my girls, I was sort of like kind of picking their brains on things. I'm like, well, how do we even begin to love ourselves, right? Because remember, the episode originally was going to be about self-love. And so the conversation came to everybody isn't raised like you, okay? And the enemies that we have, the things that we need to work on for ourselves literally come from our childhood, right? And the ways that we were raised. And some of us have good things, some of us have bad things, and some of us have things that are just difficult to understand. But understanding that we don't share the same life experiences makes it easier to deal with people, right? Because oftentimes people want to make someone their enemy. I don't like you because of this, and you're my enemy, and I'm going to talk shit about you, and this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, you're the small-minded person. If you're the one who is constantly saying that you don't like somebody, or you're blaming the quote-unquote enemy for whatever reason because you don't like them, when in all actuality, it takes an understanding of them not being raised like you and trying to figure it out. You feel me? And that's how I feel like we talked about friendships on my last episode. That's how you kind of balance relationships and friendships out, is learning to understand other people, right? And this episode is probably going to be really quick, y'all, because I'm tired and I want to get through these points. But just what do you all think? Like, what are some of the things that you've noticed about yourself? You know what I'm saying? And a lot of the things that we experience and a lot of the things that we project onto other people are simply because we've been given them from our family. And as children, we naturally think that everything that our parents do is right. And it's not until we get into adulthood that we realize that we may have been led astray a little bit. We might have been fucked up a little bit. But you have to understand that everybody has those things. You know what I'm saying? Everybody learned things from their mom. If their mom was present, everybody learned things from their dad if their dad was present. And if those parents weren't present, that plays a role into how they are as well, right? So not taking everything personal. Not taking everything personal is what we have to remember. And so that leads me to my next point. Like, don't take everything personal, okay? This is what I mean by this. And I actually heard an interview with, what's her name? K. Michelle. K. Michelle had an interview where she was asked something to the extent of like, how do you be happy or how do you find joy? And one of the points that she made was things that people do to you, and I mean the things that hurt your feelings, have nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. I'm going to say it again. The things that people do to you, the things that your enemies do to make you not like them, the things that make you feel attacked by other people, has nothing to do with you, but everything to do with them, right? Here's what that means. You have a disagreement with a friend, right? And I can kind of give my own experience. You have a disagreement with a friend, and you all come to, like, y'all about to box, whatever, right? But you may have think the thing that you did or said to them, you're like, but it ain't that big of a deal. Like, I hear couples argue all the time or friends argue all the time, and they like, but it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, I've had arguments with people, and I'm like, it's not even that serious. And the motherfucker's like, yes, it is that serious. It's serious to me, right? And so you have to understand that just because something from your perspective is not that big of a deal, you may have triggered something from their past, right? I had a friend tell me before, like, I spaz like that because when I was a kid and that happened, my mom beat my ass. Or when I was a kid and that happened, I had this tragic response to it. And so I was trying to avoid that, right? So it was their natural instinct. And in my mind, if I had not taken the mature approach to analyze this person's situation, I would have just been like, this bitch is crazy. You know? And that just would have been the narrative. And it's like, okay, I get it. Like, you were trying to save yourself because of what you've already experienced in the past, right? Let me shout out some people that's in here. What's good, Corin? What's good, man? What's good, Kiela? I seen Egypt hop in here. I seen my mom in here, y'all. Say hi to my mama. Hey, Mom. Corey is in here. I don't know who the other people are, but if you're in the chat, say hello. But yeah, like, we have to be mature enough to recognize that other people are dealing with their own shit, you know? And so another thing that I thought of, and y'all gonna make this episode real quick because y'all not talking to me, what y'all thinking, what y'all feeling. But another thing that this made me think about too is me saying all this, like being empathetic to people and understanding your quote unquote enemies. That doesn't mean that you have to continue to deal with them. Okay? Let me be very clear. Just because I understand that this is a trigger from your past, that does not mean that I'm going to deal with you. And here's why. Here's why you don't still have to deal with them. It's because as adults, if somebody points out your trigger, because every time I come into a situation with someone and we have we ruffle feathers or we disagree or, you know, I'm feeling a way towards somebody and vice versa, it's like, I'll ask them like, so what made you do that? What made you say that? Like, what makes you constantly repeat this fucked up behavior, right? And they tell me like, oh, when I was a kid, this happened. I grew up without a dad. This happened to me in the past. I used to get hit in the mouth if I said this. And my mama told me if I got beat up, she was going to beat me up. So I have to fight every time I feel offended. And it's like, okay, you're telling me your trauma. You're telling me your quote unquote enemies. Check yourself then. That means that you need to start doing some work to fix yourself so that you're not having this same experience over and over and over again. And that's when I can't forgive you, right? If you're telling me what's fucked up about you and you're not working to fix it, that is a problem. Because now I feel like you want me to be your punching bag. Now I feel like you want to project all of your negative things onto me, and I ain't having that. What y'all think? Have you all had experiences where you've dealt with someone who just ain't checking themselves? Let's see what y'all thinking. Hold on. My girl E said it's a great way. It's great to be aware of your triggers, but what are you doing to move past it? Exactly. It's not enough to say, yeah, I just be spazzing out because when I was a kid, my mom was real verbally abusive, and so I have to defend myself. Yeah, that's valid for the first time you did it. Yeah, that was valid for you to use as an excuse when you were a child, but you grown, baby. You're acknowledging the issue that you have. You're acknowledging your enemy. What are you doing to fix it? Because a type of person like me, now I know that you know, so now I'm going to smack the shit out of you because now you just being a bully. Now you just trying to play me because you know what's wrong with you and you don't care. Grow up. Okay? Because I'm trying to fix my issues over here. You feel me? Kiela said everyone has a right to their own opinions, and there's no right or wrong way to feel or do things about certain situations. What do you mean? What do you mean by that when you say there's no wrong way to feel about certain situations? Because I mean, that's true. Sometimes you can't control how you feel, but it's acknowledging your triggers and figuring out that you have an enemy. This is a problem. So let me check myself at the door. And if it's so much of a problem, and when I think about this situation, I kind of get in my feelings because I'm saying, like, if you're aware, right? This episode is about self-awareness, right? And if you reach that state where you can acknowledge your issue and you are not doing anything to fix it, I cannot rock with you. Versus someone who is like, yo, these are my triggers, or these are things that I don't like. This is how I react to these situations. I don't want to project that onto you. I'm going to step away. You know what I'm saying? Versus you being like, well, every time you do this to me, this is how I'm going to react because that's just how I was raised. And it's like, now you're an adult. Yes, you were raised that way, and our parents give us the way things should go, the best way they know how, right? But as an adult, it's time for you to fix it. It's time for you to check yourself, because at the end of the day, you're going to run into this same issue with people over and over again if you have not checked yourself. If you have not conquered your enemy, you cannot deal with anyone. And I mean friendships, relationships, work relationships, sports teams, all of those things, you have to understand you. Just like when I decide that I don't want to deal with somebody. Yes, I know, I see your triggers, but now you're triggering me. I understand the types of personalities that I can't rock with. So versus I'm taking a mature approach, in my opinion, and I'm not here bragging on myself. I'm not saying that I have it all together, because I don't. But I've taught myself that, girl, if you know you can't deal with that, just let it go. I'm not going to keep trying to force a friendship, force a relationship, force a partnership with somebody who I know is triggering me just to have them around. That ain't how this go. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Lauren. Oh, my God. How are you, girl? She said, yes, sometimes I have to let people get through things on their own because they get defensive and they're only going to grow when they're ready. That's the thing too, right? Like, we all grow at our own pace. And if I'm looking at you and I'm realizing that you aren't growing, that you aren't pushing yourself, well, you can stay there. You feel me? Unchecked. Like, you know what I'm saying? Unchecked. Because I'm learning myself so I can be better for a plethora of people, right? Because here you are, you're pissing everybody off. You know what I'm saying? And you're trying to figure out why relationships aren't working. You're trying to figure out why friendships keep falling. At the end of the day, I seen a post around New Year's, right? And it was like, if you have to... Hold on, snap, y'all. Hold on. My friend calling me? Dang. I thought I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Hold on. How they getting through? How they work? My bad, y'all. But where was I going with that? Y'all know I be losing my train of thought, and that call just threw me off. But you have to dang, what was I talking about? I feel like I was talking about other people's behaviors. But yeah, you have to acknowledge that you want to grow out of that. You know what I'm saying? And some people don't mature as fast as others. Some people don't recognize it as fast as others. Let's see. Lauren also said, I've realized when I go through tough times, I get distant with those close around me. I'm still learning to deal with that. Though chaos through chaos, I always try to remain calm. The biggest thing that's helped me grow is learning to release judgment toward myself and others. Releasing judgment, okay, is a large part of that. And so I feel like when you release judgment on other people, you sort of are helping them become more self-aware, okay? And you're letting them know, like, I understand that you have your own trauma, so I'm not gonna judge you, but I will say, for me personally, I'm gonna bring it up. I'm gonna bring it to your attention. Like, yo, you keep doing this. Like, one time, okay, fool me once, shame on. How they say it? Fool me once, shame on you. You feel me? Fool me twice. Now it's on me, cause I knew. You know what I'm saying? But you have to want to change. You have to take, and here's another point that just came in my head. I'm all over the place, but like these points keep coming to me. Some of us, and I've been here before too, get offended when people bring to our attention our issues. And I feel like that in itself is a measure of your maturity level, depending on how they do it. Now, if it is a respectful approach, I feel like you got to appreciate those people who are bringing it to your attention. And again, you have to check yourself, right? So it's like, sometimes some people get really offended when you bring to the table their fucked up patterns. They get defensive. And that, again, is like, dude, I'm not coming at you. I'm just trying to help you check yourself, right? Because this defensive nature that you have, you cannot deal with anyone. You're never going to go through life and not get criticism. You're never going to go through life and not experience lapses in judgment. You're never going to go through life and not have disagreements with people, right? But you have to step outside of yourself. One, you have to realize within yourself, you know what I'm saying? I'm this type of person. I'm that type of person. But you also have to understand that there's outside entities that are also having to deal with you. And you got to adjust, okay? And if you don't want to, just don't do it. Don't deal with them. But in some situations, I'm thinking of like work in specific or in particular, like, you have to learn how to check yourself in order to deal with people for that small amount of time to get to a common goal. I ain't never been married. I've never even been in an official relationship. But I would presume that in order to make a relationship work, right, you have to learn to understand that person's trigger. You have to be aware of yourself and know how to deal with those people, right? Because if you can't, then you're not going to be successful. If the goal is a successful marriage, you got to learn how to compromise, right? You got to go within yourself so that you can give to the other person, right? If the goal is a successful business relationship, your eyes have to be set on the fact that you want the business to be successful, and you have to be willing to check yourself and realize that it's not all about you, okay? What y'all talking about in the chat? Hey, Ned. Egypt said, keyword you just used, excuse. At some point, you're just choosing to continue the behavior, plus expecting people to coddle you. You shouldn't want people in your life who are okay with you being stagnant. That's what my best friend just said, and I agree. Right? We have some people, and I feel like I'm repeating myself. That's why I said I feel like this episode might be a little short. But the points that are being made are very valid. Like, I feel like we encounter some people sometimes who are so selfish versus being self-aware. Right? And everything is about them. And every situation is about them. And if things don't go my way, I got an attitude, or I want to fight, or I want to argue, or I want to ignore you. Where they're doing this because as a child, they never got the attention that they needed. So they're expecting you to run after them, or they got a lot of attention. And now that the spotlight isn't on them, they expect every single thing to be okay for them. It's like, nah, baby, you grown. You're able to voice what you need without an attitude, without a temper tantrum, without being aggressive. You feel me? So we have to learn that. Thank you, Ned. She said, fool me one time, shame on you. Fool me twice, can't put the blame on you. Fool me 3 times, fuck the peace sign, load the chopper, let it rain on you. Y'all know about J. Cole? No? Okay, never mind. But yeah, it's just like, check yourself. Like, if you want to have a successful life, you have to understand who you are, and that takes digging, right? And I told y'all at first we tried to make this episode about self-love, and the notes that I took about that, when we talk about self-love and loving yourself and understanding yourself, we oftentimes associate that with real life fluffy stuff, like, oh, take a bubble bath, put on a face mask, go get your hair done, go get your nails done. But self-love can be ugly and difficult and hard, because if you truly love yourself, it's going to be more. Self-love is going to mean more than making yourself look pretty. You feel me? Self-love is going to be like, okay, Toya, you've been successful in every aspect of your life except for romantic relationships. What's wrong with you? You feel me? And it's going to take journaling, but being real in your journal. It's not just going to be like, dear diary, today everybody had me fucked up. It's like, no, Toya, dear diary, this is the pattern that I'm experiencing. And then you need to figure out why you are that way, because you can't go out here and expect somebody to give something to you. And I don't mean a physical gift. I don't mean money in your pocket. I don't mean to get your hair done. I mean the deep shit. You can't expect people to give you something that you haven't even given to yourself. Trust me, it ain't gonna work. Okay? So you actually have to dig deep and be aware of who you are before you can step into a next level. I feel like, and tell me if you agree or disagree, right? I feel like self-awareness is like a ladder, right? It's not like a one-time thing. We have to check ourselves often, right? It's like, okay, so I've been realizing, and you probably don't realize that there's small things. Like, I've been realizing that every time I get a new female friend, like, we end up falling out, right? Recognize patterns in your life. Then it takes for you to sit down and be like, well, what am I bringing to the table? Or what are they bringing to the table? What can I change, right? And sometimes that literally means, baby girl, maybe you need to stop looking for friends. That's not where your focus should be, right? Self-awareness is being okay and understanding who you are. What did it say? It goes back to your boundaries. If someone triggers, habits, patterns, etc. are negatively impacting you, it can be a deal breaker. Other times, they may be easier to handle and giving you more room to be compassionate, okay? And so boundaries keeps coming up, y'all, in every single episode. So I feel like the next episode, don't hold me to that, but an episode in the near future has to be about boundaries. But yeah, it's like, you got to understand why you're being triggered too. Because I'll say, I've been to therapy, right? And my therapist ain't told me to stop drinking wine yet. Hold on. But I've been to therapy, right? And I'm over here sitting back. Let me put my mic up because I'm getting comfy, y'all. I'm in my sweats today. And there have been things that I've expressed to my therapist and like that frustrate me about people. Like, ooh, every time I meet somebody, they do this. Every time I try to date somebody, they do this. And she had to kind of like, she would just listen to me talk. And then she would bring up points like, well, when you were a kid, didn't you say that this is what you saw in relationships? Or what is your image of relationships growing up? She asked me these questions and she kind of like mentioned triggers, and it's like we subconsciously expect what we saw in our childhood to be the standard. Like, it don't matter if you're actually madly in love with this person. Like, you gonna stick it out. Some people have grown up in families where it's like, it don't matter if you in love with them. If you want to have a baby, go do it. You know what I'm saying? And so we have to be understanding to other people who didn't grow up to that, who are like, listen, I love you, but I can't be with you right now. Or I think you're really pretty, but I don't want to date you. Like, what you mean? If you think I'm fine, if I think you fine, we supposed to be fine together and have some fine babies and live a fine life. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes that triggers our depression. Like, you get to a certain age. Like, me personally, I'll tell y'all my own business a little bit. I'm almost 30. I'll be 27 in about a month. And it's like, I feel like I sort of should have a relationship, right? Like, in my mind, at this age, you're supposed to have a man. You're supposed to at least have a kid or be ready to have a kid. And it's like, because that's what I've seen growing up, that people in my family have had children already by my age, have been in committed relationships already by my age, you know what I'm saying, who were dating heavily by my age, I picked up the perception that something was wrong with me because I wasn't what I saw growing up. You know what I'm saying? And so I think I had to take a step back, and now I'm trying to teach myself that that's not the road you're on, but you're good. Like, there's not necessarily something wrong with you. Your narrative is just a little different. And if so, like, if that is a goal for you, what do you need to do to get there? And be happy about it, right? What y'all saying in the chat? Kiela says, I think the Black community is almost looked down on to get therapy or just getting help. And I've heard people say, well, God will get you through anything. That is a very good point. And y'all, I ain't ready to get too deep into the religion, therapy, spirituality, that whole spectrum. But I will say that is very true. Now, this is a very, like, triggering topic for some people. But whatever, fuck it. Ain't nobody gonna be my ass. So when we think about the Black community in therapy, that is very true. People are like, you don't need to go to therapy. Like, God got you. You need to just pray about it. I've literally had someone tell me that in the last, like, 4 months. Like, I was kind of talking about therapy and suggesting therapy, and they're like, well, I don't need to go to therapy. I'm going to just pray about it. I'm going to just go work out. And I'm just like, but your mind is fucked, right? You got plenty triggers from your childhood, and our childhood triggers are clashing right now, right? And so I think a part of being self-aware and, like, learning to check yourself is understanding that all of those things work in tandem, in my opinion, right? We can't just shun off the fact that mental health is a thing. You can pray your way out of anxiety. And just like Nettie said in the chat, faith without work is dead. I feel like therapy is a part of that faith. Like, yes, God can deliver me from depression. Yes, God can deliver me from anxiety, but I have to do the work. Therapy is a part of that work. A part of that work that goes along with that faith. You feel me? If that's a way that you got to check yourself, do that. Okay? Who else? Woo, focusing on your plan and not God's. Felt that. Right? And it's like, people say all the time, because, okay, let me go back to the point of, like, oh, Black people shun off therapy and things like that. I feel like, here's how I want to compare it to make this a little lighter for people that'll easily get offended by this. It's the same concept of praying for a home, right? I want a house. God, please give me a house. God is not just going to drop the house on some empty land with your name on it. You have to do the work to get the house. You feel me? When God sees you doing what you need to do to get where he called you to go, that's where it is. It's like, there's no such thing as luck. It's opportunity meeting preparation. You got to prepare for what God is giving you. I'm not a preacher, so I'm going to switch gears because, yeah. But you got to do your work. You got to do your work. You got to do your work on yourself, because you cannot deal with anybody, and nobody is going to want to deal with you if you are so fucked up, if you are so defensive, if you are so negative. You feel me? And some people may deal with it, but if they see that you're not trying to fix it, you're causing them to leave. You not being checked, you not being good with you is going to push people away, because ain't nobody about to deal with that. I'm sorry. Maybe for a little while, you know what I'm saying? Oh, I love you. I know you can do better. We all can do better, but baby girl, if they're not actively working to get better, it ain't gonna get better. They need to check themselves. And you need to check yourself to figure out why you're still allowing it. Okay? When people are doing things that you don't like, you can easily say, I can easily tell somebody, you need to get yourself together. You need to check yourself. You need to check yourself. When I need to look at myself and say, Toya, why are you still allowing it? You need to check yourself. Okay? So checking yourself don't just mean you're doing something negative. I could be loving somebody so much. You could be loving somebody so much and they keep hurting you. Why they keep hurting me? They keep doing this. This girl keep being fake. We keep getting into arguments and fights. You're allowing it. Check yourself. Okay? Because clearly they're not ready to check themselves. So now checking yourself is not just about the negative. Why are you so loving, baby girl? You need to check yourself. Okay? What's good? My big brother up in here, he got a whole lot to say. He said, you're fine. Everything happens when it's supposed to. Never rush someone is getting their self together for you and your likings, as well as you getting the chance to know yourself. Love isn't a book, but in the heart, it plays itself out. Aw, that was so sweet. Thank you, bro. I appreciate that. E just said therapy brings a perspective from someone who doesn't have a prejudgment of you. People think venting to friends and family is enough, but it usually isn't. And that is so true. Like, venting to your friends, I feel like you don't even realize it, but you're always watching what you say. Okay? Because yes, and I've had this experience, yes, your friend's gonna give it to you straight, but sometimes that's not what you need. You know? And sometimes it's like, I don't even really need you to give it to me straight and tell me I'm gonna be okay. A therapist is a person who is gonna tell you, like, you'll be fine, but here's how you get to be fine. You know what I'm saying? And here's why this bothers you, so that you don't go through that same experience. Okay? Next said, I do my best to check myself first. And that's what it's all about, right? Checking yourself is a two-way street. If you want to have better relationships, if you want to have better friendships, if you want to be a better person in your career, check yourself. Check your patterns. We all have patterns, okay? And I think what else I got? But yeah, like, that's the notes that I took for the most part. Is like checking yourself, checking your insecurities. This is a quick episode. I told y'all we only had 30 minutes, and that's totally fine. But yeah, it's kind of like, check yourself. What are your triggers? What are the things that bother you? Do you want to deal with people? Because sometimes we get into a state where it's like, I don't really want to deal with anybody. So you're going to naturally start to check yourself. Because if you get tired of being alone, that means you need to check yourself regardless. And you're going to start to check yourself regardless. Kiela said, that's why I had to stop telling people and close to me stuff, because I often get judged and told what to do. That doesn't necessarily align with my intuition. Valid. And we know what we need, right? And when we seek advice from our friends and our family, and here's one thing that I'll totally admit right now. I had a situation, and it got to a point where I was like seeking advice from everybody. And now I kind of regret it, because what if you get to a point where you don't take any of that advice, but you really feel in your heart and soul that what your intuition tells you is true? Now you got everybody like, this bitch dumb. I told her not to do it. I don't know why she even still did that. I don't know why she would even do that. Now they know all your business and they judging you. So now you might be in a tough spot again. So that's why I think therapy is so important. It's because you get that perspective, or you even get that help from somebody who is not going to judge you. And I don't mean judge in a bad sense, but at the end of the day, if you go back to a fucked up situation that nobody understands but you, everybody judging you, right? So check yourself at the door. This is a quick episode. Your girl is tired. I've been at work all day. I got to go to work in the morning. I got to go to work tomorrow. But yeah, this episode is called Check Yourself. I'm about to close us out, and we're going to chat a little bit offline. So here we go. Thank you for tuning in to Universal Teas. This is episode 11, and it's called Check Yourself. If you haven't already, please make sure you add me on Facebook so that you can be a part of the conversation every single Tuesday at